This is the outfit Net Zero Australia, which is warning us that we'd have to find $1.5 trillion of investment by 2030. $1.5 trillion. I mentioned Professor Judith Sloan last week, who made the point that I've made many times, and I quote, for many countries, short-term emission reduction targets to 2030 won't be met. And she said, in longer-term ambitions, net zero by 2050, and in some cases earlier, are just hot air on the part of politicians, unquote. Robert Gottliebsen, who's forgotten more than Bowen would ever know, has written, quote, the truth is that unless we alter our strategies, the zero carbon 2050 target, he means carbon dioxide, the zero carbon 2050 target means that the recent rises are just the start of much bigger, longer term power price increases. Robert Gottliebsen said, current levels of electric power will become unaffordable for people on lower incomes. Longer term, he said, high inflation and interest rates are inevitable. Robert Gottliebsen. He warns ominously, people I trust tell me, that if Origin's Eraring power station shuts in 2025, 18 months from now, it will be almost impossible for our largest state, New South Wales, to avoid complete blackouts in some areas, and those areas will therefore, he says, lose water supply, sewerage and all the other facilities that depend on power, unquote. And Gottliebsen rightly says, so it's not just me saying these things. I mean, Gottliebsen rightly says that owners of coal-driven power plants have been told by politicians that they've got a limited life. They'll be shut down. So they perform the minimum of maintenance. Can you imagine a greater energy crisis simply because the presiding government gained 32% of the vote and think they've got a divine right to be right? I mean, we elect them. We are the public masters. They're the servants. We're the masters. I mean, to make matters, well, I would never vote for Bowen, but I mean, someone did. But we are the masters. We put them there. To make matters worse, and Gottliebsen alludes to the point, I've made this many times, that these carbon reduction strategies, or carbon dioxide, will have to address the ballooning costs of capital equipment and the enormous quantity of minerals like copper and nickel that will be needed. So, to boost mineral production of these resources, higher prices will be needed to make the mining of them economic. So the price at the other end of the operation keeps increasing. And Robert Gottliebsen issues a credible warning. My guess is that when the public, not just in Australia, understands that current strategies will have such a disastrous impact on power pricing, there will be a global community revolt, unquote. We need to remember one thing. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. When we talk reducing carbon pollution, they mean carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the breath of life. It's coming out of my mouth now. Plant life thrives on carbon dioxide. As one of my correspondents says, rather than smother the landscape with glass panels and transmission lines to feed our CO2-hungry vegetation, we'd be better off feeding our hungry vegetation with carbon dioxide. You see, Bowen survives in this portfolio because the bureaucrats feed him the junk that he wants to hear. Remember growing up? We envied the notion made in Germany. Made in Germany. The Mercedes-Benz no longer. Some of Germany's most famous brands have moved their manufacturing offshore. It's happening here. And if energy prices continue to climb, we'll lose many of our companies for good, as is happening with Germany. I read recently that the Federation of German Business found that 16% of businesses are in the process of leaving Germany. Energy prices through the roof. Another 30% will follow suit. Tesla has halted plans to build factories near Berlin. These are the consequences of this energy policy nonsense, which I've been warning about for years.